Hello, learners. Today we're going to talk about peer review. So let's give you an overview of what we're going to talk about. What is peer review? Why is it important? How do we follow the ACT values? Do's, don'ts, examples, and a recap. So peer review, what is it? Peer review occurs when we provide feedback to our peers' writing. We look at their work, we make comments on it, we discuss the comments, and hopefully we apply those comments to our work. So we comment on parts that intrigue us, that please us, that confuse us, give us pause, or seem questionable. Peer review is either one-on-one or asynchronous situation. Peer review can occur during a tutoring session, paper review, or discussion board post, and more. There are varying situations where peer review can occur. Why is peer review important? It helps us look at our work through somebody else's eyes, which allows us to change our perspective. Gives us feedback to help us improve our own writing, teaches us to divorce ourselves from our work, which is so important. What you have written is not a reflection of who you are as a human being. You are writing down a thought, something that is intangible, trying to make it tangible. It's going to need revision, and that's okay. All right? But that piece of writing that you've done does not determine your worth as a human being. So that's something some of us need to learn, right? It also helps build rapport between learners. So when you can give feedback to your peers, you're building a relationship with them, and that's important. And it turns your piece into a living document. No more is it just one and done, or I've just written this piece and off it goes. It now becomes a more flexible piece of writing that you can adapt, that you can change, that you can grow, evolve, and revise. So how does the peer review relate to the ACT values? When we think about ACT values, think about growth mindset, all right? Failures are temporary here, especially with writing. If you have the chance to revise something, all those failures are temporary. And mistakes are a source of learning. So if you notice that you are struggling with something during your peer feedback, maybe it's time for you to go back to the basics or go back to some resources and just kind of brush up on it so you know what you're doing. Peer mistakes are an opportunity to show grace too. So if you're looking at somebody else's work, sometimes we're thinking, wow, like I've made a lot of mistakes, but I don't see as many mistakes in their work, or even vice versa. Both opportunities allow you to engage with your peers and empathize with them, which is truly, truly important. And as a nurse, right, empathy is important. Responsibility. All right. This teaches us responsibility because it allows us to proactively work to improve our own self. It also helps us build relationships with our peers. And it becomes your contribution to Nightingale, right? If you are giving feedback to somebody, you're contributing to a community that's larger than yours. So let's talk about some do's and don'ts. So peer review, do. Be kind. We just spoke about grace and how important that is. Please be kind. Ask questions. It's going to be very important to ask questions because sometimes when we write quickly, maybe we didn't phrase a sentence in a way that is truly understandable to other people. So when they look at it, they might not know what it means. It's okay for you to say, "What are you trying to say here? I'm a bit confused." That's an okay thing to say. So make sure you're asking questions. Read the work out loud. Whether you are giving peer review or you are receiving peer review, it is going to be important that the work is read out loud because that helps catch some of the grammatical mistakes that might be throughout the piece. But that would be one of the last things you focus on because the first thing you want to focus on is content before focusing on grammar. Okay? And focusing on content is going to be important because if I'm going to remove paragraph 2 and 3, then it wouldn't matter about my grammar in paragraph 2 and 3 if I'm just focusing on content. So that's going to be something to consider. Make sure to be specific with your comments, okay? It's going to be really important that you provide as much detail as possible, okay? You can't just say, wow, you had some issues with sentence structure throughout the piece. Well, let's be a little more specific. You can say that and then say here, in paragraph 3, I noticed that this is what happened, but I noticed it throughout the piece too, right? So being specific, being detailed, that's going to be important. And make sure you read the piece completely before commenting on it. Peer review don'ts. Don't say I liked it without explaining why. Don't say I didn't like it without explaining why. Don't compare your work with others. You can look at it and kind of make some noticing, but please don't sit there and look at somebody else's work and start to make yourself feel bad about it. Don't make unhelpful or hurtful comments. You don't need to swear. You don't need to be cruel. We're being graceful. We're being kind. Do not submit your feedback without rereading it first, all right? So make sure that if you made comments about spelling or you made comments about sentence structure, don't be making those errors in the feedback that you're providing. You're not fixing someone else's work. Peer review is not fixing work. Peer review is giving people insight into patterns of issues. And don't submit someone else's work when you're doing peer review, ever. So let's talk about a few examples. So here are the considerations when providing feedback. Think about your tone, if you're providing written feedback or you're receiving feedback, consider tone. Consider those asking of questions. That is incredibly important. If you're on the receiving end of feedback and you're not sure what someone has said, ask them a question about it. When you're providing feedback, think about what did you understand? What did you like? What questions did you have? What suggestions did you have? And make sure to always make one comment about the piece. How could the piece be improved upon? Throw in something positive because that's going to be important. So now I'm going to show you 2 discussion replies. So the initial post is cats are better than dogs. They are better because I like them. Insert fact here. At least 1,000 dogs bite people all the time. Our reading said so. Posted by James. So this discussion reply, if you're providing feedback to it, you want to think about what's good about the post. What could be improved? Did the learner include materials from the week? Did the learner give credit where credit was due, including citation? Who wrote the post? How can I drive the conversation forward? So to see what that looks like in action is, let's say there's James's post, and here would be my response. Hi, James. I appreciate your participation in our discussion this week. I enjoyed reading my colleagues' posts. I have to agree with your assertion that cats are better than dogs. I have 3 cats in my family. I'm also glad that you like them. Can you please elaborate on why you like them? Our reading this week went over some pretty astounding facts about cats that may help you make your argument. I did notice the data on how many dogs bite people each year. I'd like to suggest that you include a specific citation for this data. It's always important to give credit where credit is due. What did anyone in our group think about the strange stats on human injuries from cats? So as you can see in this specific example, that the reply tries to touch on all the points mentioned in the previous slide. Okay, so when you're doing discussion replies, make a list. Write a list down. Make sure that you touch on all those points. So let's do a recap. Peer review occurs when peers provide feedback to each other. Peer review allows us to share our work and revise it using useful feedback. Peer review requires the use of the ACT values. There are many do's and don'ts. I've listed a few in this slideshow. I provided some examples, and that's it. If you have any questions, please contact the Nightingale Writing Center. Thank you so much.